Aeon Karis.
This is Satya, and you're listening to
Love, Sex, and the Hidden Agenda. Our podcast was created with the sole intention to release toxic shame, illuminate our shadow nature, and expose the mysterious entities that feed off our most precious life force, our sexual energy. To learn more about our life-enhancing courses and transformational retreats, visit knowtheself.com. Let's dive in.
Ago is you started telling the story of how we got together, and you started to say you were going to get into like how it was going to be 1 month. You said, I'm extremely afraid of you. I said I can date you for 1 month. You were going to get into the how we
The reason I said that though also was because I didn't believe that you knew how to be monogamous. And I said I would only date you if you're monogamous because I can't in this moment handle sharing a lover with anyone.
Right.
And you said, oh, okay, I can do that. I'm like, you can be monogamous for a month. Are you sure? With your history and where you're coming from in this moment in your life.
So this is the playful way.
Said, I want 3 months. And I was so terrified by that because I didn't know if I could handle you for 3 months. And I didn't know how I was going to feel. I didn't want to fall in love with you and then have to share you with all these women. Like, I was like, whoa, I need to back up and pause. And then you convinced me because you're charming.
No, I didn't convince you.
Yes, you did. You convinced me in the sense that I trusted you enough to sign. We signed a piece of paper.
Well, and you still trust me enough to have these conversations. So
yeah. So obviously, like, I had to face my own fear, which I did with you. And I'm really grateful because there were moments, yes, I was testing you. I was checking in, and I was scared that if I didn't text you in those moments that you would mess up. So it's like, Adam, what's going on? Like, I'm at home writing, working on my book, alone in the forest, just me and the forest and the fox. And you're out there traipsing around the world, like super magnetic. And like, oh, I'm going to go to a conference. And I said, Adam, this week is really important for me. Can you like ground out? You're like, oh, I'm going to go to a conference. Don't worry. I'm going to be totally absorbed in this conference. And then suddenly I felt all safe and secure in my nervous system. Like, great, Adam's just doing his work. I can do my work and focus on me. And then suddenly it was like, oh my God, Adam, what are you doing right now? What are you doing? What are you doing right now? Please like tone it. And then it's not like I, of course, don't want you to talk to anybody, but in a way at that time, if I could really control you, you would also live in the woods somewhere alone.
Yeah.
Just to like match my energy and like ground it. But you were out in the world and then with all these people who also had really heightened electric systems, and anyone who got intertwined with you, I was 100% online with them too. So it's not just my system now, it's my system plus your system plus their system. And everyone they're connected with. And I was like, like I shouldn't be sexual at this moment because this is really overwhelming me. And then I was having to like do my command control of my own space. And then it was like, okay, I don't want to control you, but like, I don't know if this is healthy for me. But in the moments, it was like, wow, you tested me. I felt like it was a test, and it was very healing in a lot of ways because our connection was really profound. I never had someone like meet me in some of those realms.
Here's something we've never unpacked. And I was, by the way, I was getting an entire education on my side. And for any body who relates to themselves, I don't know, for any men who might watch this, or for a lot of people, you know, it was an education to be with you, because I now understand how acutely sensitive people are and are at a distance. And so if a woman, if a woman's, says, oh, I can feel you're talking to somebody, or, it's, how am I trying to explain this? It was an education to be aware of the distance at which we were intertwined, at a level of your sensitivity. And it was an education I wanted because it was also a learning about how deeply the idea of being energetically connected to somebody and being in an intimate relationship with somebody can go. Now, I mean, there's all sorts of challenges with that. Does that mean you can't have a conversation with somebody else of the opposite sex? These are all the things people face, but
Well, I
really,
didn't want to share my sexual energy with anyone else but you.
so this is the thing this is a thing we've never unpacked. So I'm really curious. So I'm across the country, or I'm back in Berkeley, and you're up in Mendocino, and you would feel that I was talking to somebody. So something I don't know, and I don't think we've ever talked about, is what precisely did you feel? And because you say you're sharing your sexual energy, and so you're also telling me that what you relate to have happened.
I could feel your turn on.
Okay, so say I was turned on now
by someone else, and
okay.
I felt that you were turned on, lit up, admiring someone else, which that's fine to a degree, but then it's like, you know, that's natural, right? That's a natural occurrence. It's not like I think I'm the only one who can turn you on, or that you're going to be excited by that. That's foolish of me to think that. However, I didn't think that you knew where the boundary was. Like I felt that you would push so far, and that if that girl said yes, you would just go to her boundary. And some of the people you hang out with didn't have any boundaries. And you also, I didn't know where your boundaries were. I couldn't find them. You had none. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, you're like game for anything. So it was hard for me because I couldn't feel contained. And I felt like, well, I don't want to be intertwined with drama. I don't want to be intertwined with other people's emotional states. Like I can barely handle my own, and me with you and our connection is enough and maxing my nervous system. I couldn't be around anyone. I wasn't socializing with anyone. Like I lived deep in the woods for a reason. So I needed you to keep me safe. And I felt like you didn't understand what that meant.
I wasn't being sexual. Wasn't sexual with anybody.
Yes, you were.
No, I wasn't. I know who you're talking about now, that my housemate, like a Swedish woman, slept in my room. Okay, I gave a massage to Mahina, the woman who lives in Hawaii. And there was like 5 other people in the room. But yes, it had sexual energy. But there was
you made out with someone, she slept in your bed and you cuddled with her the whole night. I felt all of it. And I asked you, is someone in your bed? And you were like, yeah, but like your boundary and my boundary was different.
Well,
like,
I didn't, but that's the thing, is I didn't cuddle with her, but okay, so we were next to one another.
You made out. You told me. I had to come there and have a conversation with her.
Please pull up this text where I told you I made out, because you know when so folks for folks at home, those viewing
that's
at home,
why I broke up with you, Adam.
Okay, so we broke up in early 2016, and we really haven't actually talked, and that was April 2016, and we haven't talked until April of this year, 7 years later. And upon our conversational re-engagement, it was a lot that suddenly opened up, a lot of feeling and emotion and things moving for both of us. It was like a whole timeline that had gotten truncated was suddenly like back and energized, and that Aeon and I have been like there's a timeline that's just re-engaging, and there was a lot of energy on that for both of us. But like, I mean, I will say that I'm not kidding, my nervous system wasn't strong then. It wasn't a lack of will to try. But anyways, I would like to see this text exchange. You could feel free to post it in the show notes or whatever, where I told you I made out, because I really don't remember.
Think it was on text. I think it was a live conversation.
A couple weeks ago, you said to me that I slept with somebody, and I didn't sleep with anybody.
No, sleeping. She was in your bed. And to me, your bed was our bed, right? Like my bed is our bed. I don't share my bed with anyone. So that's a boundary. Like it's like dating Adam means cuddle puddles. It means other women's energy, like slinking around. It was sensual touch, sensual energy on a regular basis. Like I was not interested in an open relationship at all. I wasn't really even interested in dating. I was just
don't don't define cuddling in a group of people as now we're suddenly in an open relationship. I'm just saying that's a tough.
It's not normal for most people, by the way.
Well, okay, if you say
You come
so.
from a tantra sex house.
I came
Most
at that point.
people have very clear boundaries around their relation and
That's
and
so not
then-
true
yeah.
because 50% of marriages end in divorce, and people are not in that. Okay, let's just not get into fantasy world just because I couldn't. I fell down the cuddle hole. Let's not get into fantasy world about how great everybody else's boundaries are. I know too much to know that.
No, but you're assuming that people are okay as adults cuddling with other adults. Most people aren't. That's a very San Francisco Bay Area subculture reality.
Yeah, that's true, but that I think I'm simply making a different point, which is that there's also a lot of people out there who understand what other people's boundaries are and still violate them and would never have the level of conversation about it that you and I did at the time and since. And yeah, I'm not making an excuse to go cuddle up, to go off and cuddle with people now. I think I'm making an excuse for, you see, the cuddling wasn't the problem. The problem was I could be walking down the street and then start talking to somebody, or somebody would recognize me. We start talking. And it was at that level of where I couldn't control it that you would text me and say, who are you talking to? And you're like, no, I'm like, I'm just talking to a friend. And you're like, no, you're sexually connecting with her right now. Your sexual energies are running. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then over time, you trained me to tune into my body, what was happening in that moment, and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this woman is turned on by me. And I'm just like talking and like being in this energized way. And I'm not choosing to turn her on. I'm not choosing not to, and I'm not trying to, but it was like this channel post tantrika land that had just like opened.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in my choice. Now, so the reason I think I'm defending myself in the same way I was back then, which was then I go home and I'm living with 6 other people, and there's other people over and they're throwing events at my house. And after the cacao ceremony, people are hanging out, people are cuddling, like everyone's in this. So I was in a Chinese finger trap, because here I am on the one hand trying not to cross the boundary of just like, like I can't even control just talking to somebody. But then I'm like, look, I'm choosing to cuddle, and I'm also telling you I'm not hooking up with this person. And so I was in this weird world where I'd come from pre-tantric world, like a lack of touch in my life, a lack of touch in my home life altogether, and had started learning that touch can be healing. And I wasn't like, okay, we're dating now, but I'm like, do I now have to give up that I can, and this is not an easy place in relationships. So, but it's like, I was confused, and I would be, I would be confused and frustrated inside. And like, I couldn't like do it right and couldn't solve the problem. And, I was just trying to be an A student, and you were marking up all my papers with red pen. And I was like, it was a trial. You put me to the ropes.
You put me to the ropes.
Put me to the ropes.
You put me to the ropes. Wow, it was other level.
Yeah, it was super hard, and for me as well, super hard.
Yeah, and I wanted,
maybe obviously in a different.
I so wanted to trust you, and what I loved about you is that you were honest. You were always honest. You deflect a lot. Like, you would keep me guessing and like play with me and kind of like make me think the worst, in a sense. Like, not that you made me think, I would think the worst because your deflection which you found fun. And
well, if you're gonna text me, hey, what are you doing with this woman right now? Obviously, I'm gonna
because and to my for those listening,
yeah,
haven't maybe heard all my episodes, like my first marriage was to I had to deal with sharing my man a lot, and it was something that I was done doing and didn't ever want to do again in that way. And you challenged me deeply, right? Because I was in I'd done 5 years of celibacy. I had trained my psychic senses deep in the forest. Here I was after the fight, like I had gone back to the city, back to the US after 8 years in India, and then was like, whoa, this place is crazy. And then my house, whatever, all this stuff was happening to me. I had been raped, had an abortion just before meeting you. So already I was like, I don't know who to trust. And the only way I can trust is through love and connection, right? Like I need to rebuild trust. And I was so shaky. I was just rebuilding everything. And you were like such this wild cracker that, Mr. Fox, for those who read my book, he is Mr. Fox. And it was wild. And
I feel
then
like I should make. I'm supposed to make like a fox chirping sound now when you say that. Like,
in the moment that we were together, we experienced some really high highs and some really low lows. Like, so we made a baby that never came to term. And when I found out I was pregnant, the day before I found out I was pregnant was the day I launched my book. I was in Washington, D.C. at the launch in the airport, having another nervous system meltdown, needed to talk to you, needed grounding, needed to celebrate my win with you, which you helped me with the book a lot. Like you were my primary editor. And I was like, oh my God, I have to have a party. I have to have a launch party. I have to do something because, I was doing the whole publisher thing. And then I came back, and in the airport in DC, I called you. I could not sleep. I was so many things stacked on me in one moment. And one of those things was that you had kissed someone. And I was like, I'm done, Adam. Like, how can you do that to me when I'm needing you the most right now? Like I broke up with you in the airport. I very much remember my feeling in that airplane was absolute devastation. And it wasn't just hearing that you had kissed someone or feeling it and talking to you and getting the confirmation on that phone call. So when I flew back, I also got a call that my best friend had broke her back and had to be airlifted off a snowboarding accident, and broke her back in 2 places, was under surgery. She was being helicoptered around. Her mom was freaking out, saying like, oh my God, she made it, but she's in surgery, a metal rod, all this stuff. And I was just like, oh my God. And then I call you, and I'm needing this like deep love. And I'm realizing that it's not there. So I flew home, like in the plane, I broke up with you, and I landed. I hadn't slept in weeks because it was the final edits of the book. So I felt like I was off of my nervous system was shot. And when I arrived back, instead of staying with you, I stayed with my friend. And it was in that same day, within that 24 hours of figuring this out, breaking up with you, saying, I'm done. I can't do it. I found out I was pregnant.
what weekend was this when you were in DC for that?
The date?
I'm curious. All right.
I think it was March.
I have no recollection who I did.
And then,
But
it was March, and I realized I was a month pregnant. So we got pregnant on Valentine's Day when I tracked back. It was March when I launched the book, and we broke up. And then I told you I was pregnant, and you didn't want me to keep the baby. And I was like, I'm keeping this baby. And you were freaking out. I don't want to be a dad. This isn't right. And I was like, I don't care. I don't need you. I'm keeping the baby. And you're like, oh, what, are you going to live in the woods raising this kid? I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And you started panicking. And then you were flip-flopping between, I love you, let's get married and move to Oregon.
I just want to say, all right, go on. Tell the whole story.
This was my experience of you.
I know. I had no idea.
Trying to stabilize. I was like, I don't know what's going on with you. I need 5-6 years alone with this child in the woods. You can be a dad or not. It doesn't matter to me. I will raise it. I'm fine alone. I've been alone my whole life. Like, I know how to do alone. I didn't know how to do together. And then you were oscillating. We had broken up. You were starting to get more and more wild. I just shut down. I just blocked you out at that moment. Then when you realized I'm keeping, I don't know, I remember you came up to see me in the woods. We kind of got back together and you were like, no, I want to be there. I want to be a dad. Like, let's do this. And we had this beautiful night of like, oh my God, we're having a kid.
Well, honestly, I was elated every time I thought about it, and then I would flip into panic. But like, my heart was elated. I was so happy that we had a child on the way. And when you first told me, I reacted, and it was from fear, because it was from fear, because I was like, well, shit, I'm struggling to like take care of my own self right now in my own employment. But then my heart was in complete, like, so much joy and so much elation.
I didn't know that. I think that no.
Oh, my heart was in such elation. I was so happy. I was like, this is going to make everything. I mean, everyone around Berkeley who I was interacting with was like, wow, you seem different. Like I was like, there was this, I was feeling so much. Honestly, it gave me like this sense of, I mean, there was definitely some highs and lows. I was having a strong emotional ride around it. But after I was a yes to it inside, I felt my whole just orientation and my thinking about the future just shift dramatically. And I was really happy. And now, I mean, in retrospect, I wish I had gone off all on my own and had my feelings and just left you for a while and found my way back to things. Maybe that would have taken some time, because I had some of my own healing to do and my own nervous system to stabilize. Yeah, I was elated, and you would have been an amazing, amazing mother. You would have been an amazing mother. And it was like a dream that I didn't even, like, us meeting was like, you know, from you coming up and giving me your card to us being together just a few days later it was like ordained, our meeting and everything that unfolded from there. And it was like what I always wanted, but wasn't having in life. Amazing, brilliant partner, a child, a family. Yeah, it was what I wanted, and wasn't was not arranging for myself. It was like a destined destiny meeting you. And I was so in resentment towards myself after we lost the child, for the things I didn't do, that it didn't bring us back to Georgia, to my family house, where it would have been really quiet and very big and very roomy, and we could have just let Ari incubate and not really have to do much of anything else. And I'm so sorry. And I was so sorry for years after. Like, I could not heal from it. And like, I could not, like, get over the grief. It was absolutely monumental. And then when we just connect, and that was for me for years afterwards, and you moved on like rather quickly, I guess, you know, and I would, you know, and had sort of many other chapters, and I was fixated and stuck in that grief for years. And then when we just reconnected in April last month, after 7 years, you suddenly were struck with like enormous, like with waves of grief. And we've never, so that's how connected we were and have remained since, whether it was conscious or unconscious. So it's interesting, because I I was unconscious during our relationship, but after we parted ways, I was very conscious that we were still very connected, and you were not aware at all, which is very, very interesting.
Well, the way I experienced you at the end of our relation, like, okay, so back up, we signed a 3-month contract to date of monogamy. And at the end of the first 3 months, we renegotiated for 3 more months. And then it was it was starting to stretch you. That's what I felt like. It was getting harder and harder for you to stay monogamous. And my work was getting stronger and stronger, and I needed you to stabilize, and you couldn't stabilize for me in the way that I needed. So that's where I was like tracking you so much and being like, hey, Adam, like, I need you to be more stable. And it was oscillating. You would like find an edge, you would come back, whatever. We were figuring it out. And then when I got really busy with the book, that the last like few weeks, and I left for DC, I think I was gone for like 5 days or something. It was like you went off the handle or something. Like I didn't even know who you were when I came back, and it terrified me. And the amount of stacked trauma that I was dealing with.
You know, we're still processing.
We're processing a lot because there's so much.
You're processing grief.
I guess what I'm feeling is like.
Well, how do you feel towards me right now? All answers are valid.
There's still some anger of losing Ari and how I lost him. And there's like awe and wonder of like how our paths came together and the magic of everything we've experienced together. There's still love and attraction and adoration, and I don't know, like this last month connecting to you has been super weird and surreal, and also very beautiful and very healing. It's confusing because I've only seen you, well, mostly we talk on the phone, and so even sitting with you like this is super weird. It's like almost in person. Like I don't know what will happen when I see you in person, but when we reconnected last month, it was so overwhelming to revisit. I felt like I had a mega soul retrieval for like 3 days straight. I was crying, and I felt Ari, like a 6-year-old boy, holding me, and I felt this parallel life of like us as a family. And I don't think I've ever allowed myself to think about it.
Yeah. I thought about it a lot. I'm angry at me too.
It's just so much stacked trauma. Like,
I mean, I feel like one thing to say is, it was magical. Everything in our relationship. Your family was, you were at that point more connected to your family, and somehow that was through your connection with me. And while we were together, things with my family felt good. It was like such a more like positive note and tone with my conversations with my mother and my brother for that period. And I just want to say, like, yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, your anger is really valid.
well, I never wanted to be a mother. I'm not that girl who grew up thinking, I can't wait to be married and have a kid. I've never thought that. I've never even had a moment's break to be able to dream that dream for myself. Like it was not an option for me the way that I felt my reality was handed to me. It was like, this world is super sick, twisted, and fucked up. And I'm going to do whatever I can to survive it, to heal, and to help anyone who's suffering. Like that's sort of been my motive since I can remember. So getting pregnant at 43 and then having all the horror around me. The moment I found out I was pregnant, there was like a lot of horror I was dealing with at the same moment. And the only reason that I was able to like relaunch my business, launch the book, you know, be there for my friend who was, you know, broken to pieces.
You're one of the strongest people I know. Like there was during our entire relationship and all the time I've known you since, I've been in total admiration of how much you handle. And I don't want, not that that's a fate I wish on you, that it should be like that, but and it's but at the time we were together, I was in admiration. I was in total admiration and fell in love with you that much more deeply when you said, I will raise the child on my own. And then we went on our separate ways for however many days or the next week or something. And I was like, wow. I mean, I knew you were amazing before that. I knew you were absolutely out of this world and something special when we had first met. And all the first time we talked, we were on the phone. I was like parked in front of my house we were on the phone for like 5.5 hours. And I was just sitting in my car for like 3.5 or 4 hours, just immersed in hearing about your life and your stories. And when we were pregnant with Ari and you were like, I'm keeping the baby. And I realized it actually had nothing to do with me. And I was like, you're just an amazing human. You're an amazing human. And your like level of conviction when you do things, and I mean, there's so many, you know, and your intuition and your abilities, like, you're not like anyone I've met. I mean, you're like very, 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 very few people I've met, but you're the only one I've met that, you know, that I fell in love with.
To learn more about our life-enhancing courses and transformational retreats, visit knowtheself.com.